Terence Crawford says he has achieved more than all the PBC welterweights outside of Manny Pacquiao. Stay tuned.
That's universal.
It really too much don't bother me as much as people think. I didn't accomplish more than all those welterweights over there except Pacquiao. You know, if you look at what I've accomplished in the sport of boxing, and if you look at what Errol, Keith, SHAWN, Danny Garcia, all those other welterweights over there, I didn't accomplish way more than each and every one of them except Pacquiao.
Do you think they need you? You don't need them?
I really don't need them.
Do you think that the Wilder-Fury fight, the collaboration between Fox and ESPN, could potentially help you land the fights that you want?
No, that just show that they can do business together, because those two fighters want to fight each other, and I'm pretty sure they went to their business handlers and said, make the fight happen, and that's how the fight got.
But now they have news are open. The guy.
We unpack. We unpack. We unpack. Coming to you live, Boxing Ego Unpacked. Yeah. We unpack. We unpack. We unpack. Coming to you live. What up, Fight World? It's your boy Ego, and I'm back with some more boxing. Make sure you smash the like button. Also, subscribe to the channel for the latest and greatest in boxing. If you want to become part of the gang, notification gang, please hit the bell icon. Shout out to the super chats, channel donations, the Venmo donations, and the Patreon family. Cash App, we working. Sign up for ESPN Plus below using my link. It does help the channel. Terence Crawford has a fight. He's fighting Aegis Kavalauskas, Mean Machine, this weekend. Fight I'm really looking forward to on that card is Richard Comey Teofimo. Title fight. Winner will likely fight Lomachenko sometime next year. Crawford, you know, he was feeling a little bit ornery, and he spoke uncut about his thoughts on the other welterweights with the PBC and across the street and all that. He says, and I quote, "It doesn't bother me as much as people think regarding like not getting some of the fights. I've accomplished more than all those other welterweights over there except for Pacquiao. If you look at what I've accomplished in the sport of boxing, and you look at Errol Spence Jr., Keith Thurman, Shawn Porter, Danny Garcia, and all those welterweights over there with premier boxing champs, I've accomplished way more than each and every one of them except for Pacquiao. I don't need them." He basically said, they need me, I don't need them. He also did an interview with Andre Ward, which can be found on ESPN Plus. Again, use my link. He says the media will say, oh, he's on the wrong side of the street. He should have signed with PBC. Then all these other fights are getting made. And he referenced like Wilder and Fury fighting. He said, but when it comes to me, I'm on the wrong side of the street. So I want to give my thoughts. A lot of people were kind of curious of what I thought. Listen, I always respect Terence Crawford, always have. I probably covered more of his fights than a lot of people. Like the ones in Nebraska, because the reason I'm saying that is because I didn't see a lot of people when I went to certain fights. Like I covered this fight with John Molina, and it was on the same night as a PBC card with Julian J. Rock Williams when he fought Jamal Charlo. And also on that card you had Abner Matas, Jesus Cuellar. That happened in my state of California where I live. You know, I'm in the Bay, but that happened, you know, down Southern California. And I went and traveled to Nebraska instead of going to the easy, you know, California fight, which would have been easier to get to. So I've always been a supporter. I've even went there for his Ray Beltran fight, stuff like that. Always been a supporter of Crawford because he's a beast. I disagree with him here. I will say that. I disagree with him. He says he doesn't need them, but I do think he needs. I think every fighter, it's not even just, you know, his particular situation. Every fighter needs a contemporary, you know, a rival, protagonist, antagonist, good versus evil, you know, however you want to spin it. Everybody needs that. So I think he's just saying that. I mean, I don't expect him to admit that he, you know, what's he going to say? Fights he's not getting. He's going to say, oh, I need them and I'm losing sleep. So, you know, he's saying what he feels. But in my opinion, I think he does need contemporaries. And unfortunately, Top Rank doesn't have any real contemporaries that are meaningful enough for him at 147. So the crazy thing is, I predicted this well before Crawford even went up to 47, when he was at 140 still. And he was talking about moving to 147. I told you guys this was all coming. The bottom line is this: PBC, they're not doing anything different than Top Rank. Top Rank, they were one of the first, companies. They've been around the game and stuff like that. They had a stacked welterweight, and they weren't putting their welterweights in with other guys. That's just the reality of the situation. So I like Crawford, but I also like the truth. And this is the truth of the matter. And I predicted this a while ago. So people want me to be angry with the PBC for making their own belts or suggesting it. Why would I, when the WBC is making their own rules? Or, Anthony Joshua should fight Wilder, and it's not happening because AJ keeps getting these mysterious mandatories that pop up, things like that. So I'm not mad at him for that. And again, when it comes to the belts, I predicted this whole thing. And when it comes to Terence Crawford, he's a phenomenal talent, great guy, athletic, competitive. He has a chance to beat anybody in his division, but it's about what can you provide for your fighter, and Top Rank simply can't get him those fights. That's just the reality of it. And if they do get him the fights, they're not on the demanding side. The saying goes, beggars can't be choosers. They're not in a position of power, I guess. So I'm not saying none of these fights can manifest, but Bob Arum, he's going to either have to figure out, what to do with Terence Crawford, or try to figure out what to do with Terence Crawford, or he's going to be, Bob Arum has been in the game, and I don't think he wants to play second fiddle, but it's just where he's at right now with the welterweight division. He doesn't have any A-list welterweights beyond Crawford. Crawford can't clone himself, Gemini Man style, and fight himself. And there's no one nearly as good that immediately works with Terence Crawford's promoter, like directly, that they could put him in with, because this is no longer that they don't. Top Rank used to have Manny Pacquiao, I believe Juan Manuel Marquez, Ruslan Provodnikov, Mauricio Herrera, I think, was over there. They had Mike Alvarado, Brandon Rios, Jesse Vargas, right? They had a couple guys like that. That's changed over the years. A lot of those guys retired, lost, no longer, considered, and they haven't had the talent to build somebody up to where Brandon Rios was at the time when he was like on his rise. So in that division, this hurts Crawford, because everyone knows he's good. No one wants to see him fight guys that you think he's going to easily blow out, because if the better guys, he's already fought them, that that he had easy access to, like the Jeff Horn, that was a makeable fight. Jeff Horn worked with Duco Vince, and Duco Vince worked with Top Rank to make the Pacquiao fight at the time when Pacquiao was with them. It was easy to make that fight. Jose Benavidez, that was an easy fight, but Crawford's already beat those. Then they made Amir Khan. All right, he's already beat these guys. No one wants to see Amir Khan rematch based on how the first fight played out. So Top Rank and Terence Crawford, they're in between a rock and a hard spot. And this is how I know that Al Heyman is killing, especially in the welterweight division, is because Bob Arum's now talking about taking Crawford to South Africa and fighting overseas, and he's admitted that it's harder to make and be profitable making certain fights in America. That's because he doesn't have the stable of guys that have been branded in America. I told you. I predicted this a while ago with HBO. They were like the ones, and Top Rank was a part of this. They started to focus on Eastern European fighters and guys from Ukraine and Russia, and just anybody like that was popping up. Lomachenko, Usyk, Bivol, Vodstick, these different guys, Victor Postal, and they completely almost abandoned and got away from the American market. Or then they would pick guys like Roman Chocolatito Gonzalez and Triple G Golovkin from Kazakhstan, and that was the people they would force feed you, and they weren't uplifting and cultivating and making sellable the American fighters. Now when some of these guys have lost, retired, went on, you know, to fall into obscurity, now you're stuck with what you've done. You relied on foreign fighters who come from different backgrounds and cultures and don't necessarily tap into or resonate with the American public, you know, based on cultural differences, language barriers, different types of humor, you know, these types of things. And now you have one good fighter with no one to match him with. You can see the same thing with DAZN. They got Demetrius Andrade, super talented, but he can't get no big fights. He can't. They talking about Demetrius Andrade versus Lucas Kettle or something. You know, Devin Haney, he can't get the big fight right now, but he's a little bit different because he's only 21. But still, it's the same thing. So we got to get back to branding fighters in America and uplifting our American talent. There's a lot of guys come, but they haven't. PBC is the one that has done that. That's why they're reaping the benefits. Danny Garcia, he's been in big fights, big enough fights, and they kept putting him in front of crowds, moved him around. Puerto Rico with Mauricio Herrera, in Brooklyn, sold out basically, versus Ab Judah, and fought in Keith Thurman in Brooklyn. These types of things. Brought him to LA, had him fight at the StubHub or whatever versus Granado. So they moved him around, put him in different looks, and now these guys have a name for himself. So back to how it pertains to Crawford, I disagree with him because, again, I think every fighter needs a contemporary. If Eric Morales didn't have Marco Antonio Barrera or Pacquiao, and Pacquiao didn't have Juan Manuel Marquez and Morales and Floyd, I mean, this is what made and helped define his career, by fighting contemporary. Cotto's and Mayweather needed people like Shane Mosley, Cotto, Pacquiao, Canelo, you know, guys that will help his resume. So I disagree fully with Terence Crawford. I do think he does need the PBC guys. As far as he's done way more in certain regards, he has, in terms of he came from lighter divisions, 35, conquered that, 40, conquered that, became undisputed, and now he's at 47 and he's already a champion in his first fight. So he's done things like that, but the only downside for it is people won't give him credit because he doesn't have the same names on his resume, the big names that ring bells with the people and resonate. So a lot of people will sleep on his resume. I've given Crawford credit because I think he's fought, out of all people in boxing, especially his age, he's one of the guys that are willing to fight anybody's style, and he looks the same every time. He fights guys tall, short, fat, skinny, medium, muscular, you know, punchers, non-punchers, boxer, puncher, guys who are brawlers, guys who mix it up, southpaw, orthodox, guys who are champion, guys who aren't champions, gold medal. He's willing to fight all the styles. We know that. But unfortunately, what Top Rank has provided him, and he re-signed to them, he hasn't had the big names. And I told you, and I stand by this. The biggest missed opportunity is Top Rank having Pacquiao at a point in time, maybe thinking he would never leave, or I don't know, because he had been with them so long, and then he left. And now you're left with the idea that he got away and he's continued his career, and he's almost rejuvenated his career on PBC. Pacquiao has fought Broner, a name recognizable guy, won that fight, then fought Keith Thurman, a young undefeated champion, took his belt. That did a lot. That Thurman Pacquiao fight was fun, and it showed that Pacquiao still got some in the tank. It was better than Tim Bradley 3. It was better than Chris Algieri, Rios, Jesse Vargas. It meant more for Pacquiao. And now they're talking about Pacquiao might get Mikey Garcia, another person who left Top Rank, Mikey, Pacquiao, and that kind of thing. So Pacquiao is closing his career strong since he got rid of Top Rank and Michael Conks. He's getting more recognizable fights and being in front of, you know, bigger crowds, I would say, and just more desired fights that people will give him credit for. If he beats Mikey, just look at it. Broner, Keith Thurman, and then if he beats Mikey, that would be his last 3 fights, as opposed to fighting Brandon Rios off a loss, Chris Algieri, you know, and whoever else, you know. Jesse Vargas and Jeff Horn. You know, these just weren't the fights people were asking for. So that's a huge missed opportunity from Top Rank. Now Pacquiao left you, reinvigorated his career with good performances against bigger names, and you never made the Terence Crawford fight with Pacquiao. You should have just fed Pacquiao to Terence Crawford. Whoever won. And then at the very least, Crawford wouldn't be able to get these PBC guys necessarily, you know, straight away. But he would at least have Pacquiao on his name if he was able to beat him. But Bob Arum, you know, kind of overplayed his hand with that situation. Pacquiao got away, and now Pacquiao is fighting them people. So I can't be mad at PBC for that, because again, Top Rank, when they had players in the welterweight division, they weren't in a rush. We didn't see Tim Bradley versus Keith Thurman, Tim Bradley versus Errol Spence, Tim Bradley versus Amir Khan, guys who were with Al Heyman. We didn't see Pacquiao fighting Broner, Keith Thurman, Spence, Danny Garcia when he was with Top Rank. You know, those fights, some of them manifested after he left Top Rank, right? We didn't see Ruslan Provodnikov versus Keith Thurman or Maidana or something like that. We didn't see Brandon Rios versus Broner. These were all fights that people kind of talked about, right? You know, they talked about seeing, but they never happened. So how can we now cry in this Crawford situation? And it sucks for boxing fans, I get that. But how can we cry when Top Rank failed to give Bud Crawford Pacquiao, and the fight was there? HBO wanted it. I wanted it. I made several videos. Don't make me pull up my old videos. I made several videos. Pacquiao ran from the fight. I told y'all that. And y'all said I was lying and stuff. And they just didn't get the job done. They didn't get the fight done. Pacquiao was willing to fight Keith Thurman. Maybe he was willing to fight Terence Crawford. But for whatever reason, they went another option, and now Crawford's stuck, which was predictable. I told you this was going to happen. So it's unfortunate for Crawford, but this is the situation that he aligned himself with, and it's just he's privy to politics. He's privy to politics, and that's the basic gist of what's going on. He wants to fight the guys, but now you're seeing Crawford all of a sudden for this fight week talk about moving to 160. There's a reason for that. They're talking about Crawford versus Canelo and stuff like that, because they don't have anyone for him at 147, and that's a shame. That's a shame. It's like kind of like Guillermo Rigondeaux. Guillermo Rigondeaux had to move up 2 weight classes to fight Lomachenko because he couldn't get the fights with people closer in his weight, you know, and they kind of starved him out. Same thing with Luis Ortiz. Very unfortunate. Luis Ortiz, he had to get knocked out twice by the biggest puncher in boxing, Deontay Wilder, because no one else would step up to the plate. No one would step up to the plate and fight him, so he took Wilder twice. And I'm not saying Crawford will end up like Luis Ortiz or Guillermo Rigondeaux with the loss if he were to fight Canelo, because, you know, skillfully, maybe he can beat him. But I'm just saying he may have to move up to 54 at least, or 160, to pursue different options, because they don't have anyone for him. So, you know, he has to put himself in a whole different category. And he has people right there at this current category that make sense for him, but he can't get it. But part of it also is Bob Arum. If you listen to his old interviews, DBN has an interview with Arum, and he says, so, hey, so you think you'll work with the PBC? And Bob Arum says, nope, and walked away. And that was the end of the interview. Then he started coming around a little bit and saying less bad things, because he was saying Bob Arum was saying Al Heyman is the cancer of boxing and he ruined, and even at the Amir Khan Terence Crawford fight. How is that? I told you guys. Bob Arum ranted at the Amir Khan kind of ruined the fight with quitting, and it didn't play out traditionally. Bob Arum started ranting about Al Heyman. It was like, Al Heyman, he's hiding his guys, blah, blah, you know, and he's ranting. Is that really a way that's going to get Terence Crawford the fight you want? You're not in the position with that fighter to dictate the terms. Meanwhile, Errol Spence, he making money. He's on pay-per-view a couple times. His pay-per-views have been more successful. There's no way. I'm not talking about skill for skill, because when it comes to that, you know, they both got that. But notoriety, Errol Spence has been managed and promoted with bigger names and bigger events, to the point where Errol Spence just fought Shawn Porter, who has a crazy resume when you start thinking about it. And Crawford is days away from fighting Mean Machine. There's clearly a difference. Somebody said they had seats left, a lot of seats. And I'm not going to pull it up and look it up, but from what I heard, there's a lot of seats left for that particular fight. And some people even feel the main event is not even the most anticipated fight. They're looking more forward to Teofimo versus Comey. So, this is just what it is. This is the politics of boxing. They're putting Errol Spence in position to be the man, to be the A side, and giving him the opportunities. And that's what any promoter would do, including Top Rank, because they did do that. They didn't feed Pacquiao to no PBC fighter like Danny Garcia when he was undefeated. Those fights could have definitely happened. Remember they were talking about Pacquiao fighting Danny or Broner, and they offered him $3-4 million apiece. Now Bob Arum's probably regretting not making Pacquiao versus Crawford, because Pacquiao ended up leaving and reinventing himself, making money, being on pay-per-view, selling some pay-per-views, and getting a lot of respect from the fans from his last 2 performances with Broner and Keith Thurman. And then now they have Crawford. ESPN ain't really doing much to overly promote him. Like I've seen very little promotion, outside of the Andre Ward sit-down interview, which was good. But they're not really building his fights, building him into a household name. So this is the conundrum that Terence Crawford is currently in. That's what I see. That's me, Unpacked, giving you the honest truth. Crawford is a phenomenal fighter. I think he will fight anyone, but he's caught up in the rapture of boxing politics. So I disagree with him that he doesn't need any of the PBC guys, because he's done what he's done, but everyone needs a contemporary to me. Imagine that Mike Tyson and Lennox Lewis, if Lennox Lewis said, I don't need Holyfield and Tyson, you do, like, okay, he didn't get the Riddick Bowe fight, but he got everybody else that he needed, Lennox. So you need contemporaries, you need rivals. That's just what it is in boxing. So Terence Crawford, no matter how good he is skillfully, he does need the people with the big names and the brands so he can show how good he is. So I don't understand. To me, that sounds like a frustrated comment almost, where like to show no emotion type of thing. But I didn't really understand that comment, to be honest, saying I don't need these guys. They need me. If anything, you guys need each other. But since they have the bigger pool of talent and more established guys, to me, Crawford needs PBC guys more than the other way around, because PBC can keep doing this. If you really look at it, without Crawford moving up to 160 or 154, these guys can stay at welterweight if they can make the weight. Errol Spence can fight Pacquiao, Mikey Garcia winner, whoever wins that fight. He can fight a rematch with Shawn Porter. The first fight was great. He can fight Danny Garcia if he gets past Ivan Redcash, etc. He could fight you guys for a comeback fight. That was once his mandatory. I think it might be his mandatory again, because he got 2 belts. I think that was his mandatory. Omar Figueroa, Ugas winner, and the list goes on and on. Spence can fight Sergey Lipinets even, as a stay busy fight, or Jose Cito Lo. He has options. You get what I'm saying? He has different people he can fight in his division with some level of name or brand. And that's just what it is. So we'll see how it all plays out. That's my thoughts. We Unpack, coming to you live. So if you enjoyed this video and want more content like this on the channel, you can show your appreciation by going to the PayPal donate button or the YouTube support button, and you can donate any amount that you feel is equivalent to the value of this video. Much more to come. Thank you guys for your support. Boxing Ego, the future of boxing.